Hey guys, Mr. Hensley here, and you have learned some theater terms through the videos and just looking them up on your own for our tours. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take you into our theater, which as you can see here is called the Bernard C. Campbell Performing Arts Center. All right, it's named after this guy right over here. I don't know if you can see, there we go, named after this guy right here. He was the superintendent of our district for quite a while and helped put our schools on the map, so to speak. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we are going to show you a little bit about our theater and how those terms apply to us and our space, okay? So obviously right now we are here in the lobby, or not the lobby, but in the foyer of the theater. We were in the lobby just a moment ago. As you come in, again, you can see the title here. All right, and you can go either left or right. Now that seems very basic, but some of you, this will be your first time in here. Now, right around this corner here is a doorway and with stairs up. What this is, I'll show you a quick bit here, is this is our booth. It's our tech booth. I'll show you a shot from the other side as we get there. But this is our tech booth. And in our tech booth, we have our light board, we have our sound board. So you can see those two things there, our light board and our sound board. And just our closet, storage closet, things like that. And as you can see, this is where they run our shows from. This is our theater space. Now, our house, our theater is divided into three sections, as you can see. Obviously, right ahead of us here is the center section. All right, to the left, house left. To the right, house right. Very simple. Seems like that would make sense, but people often confuse house directions with stage directions. And so we want to make sure you understand that and that you understand where they're going so you can navigate your way through. Now, what I'm going to do right now is show you how we can designate or differentiate where we're sitting in the house as we go through and as you get tickets and things like that. So for our house left section, the numbering, as you can see on these seats here, are odd, and they'll jump 1, 3, 5, so on and so forth. And every row starts with 1, okay? If you move over here and you come over to the house right, they're all even. So they start with row 2, or not row 2, seat 2, seat 4, seat 6, okay? And it's gonna be that way on both sides, all the way down. What you are missing here is a row I. You don't have a row I, as you can see, because we go from row H to row J. Reason being, the I can look very confusing to be a 1 or something like that on somebody's ticket. So they try to avoid the confusion by just skipping the I altogether. It's kind of like how there's not a 413 kind of thing, except for that's for other reasons. Then the center section here. If you look at the center section, you'll see that it has 3-digit seat numbers, all right? So it does move from 101 on the end all the way down to 114. Now, this theater is big. You can see it's big, and it has a total of about 1,000 seats, right at 1,000 seats. Not all of them work great because they're just getting old, they're rusting, that kind of thing, but it does have 1,000 seats in here. So that's a little bit of our theater space here. You can see the booth up there where we were just a few moments ago. That looks down upon our theater. Okay, so to review our house directions, looking at it from the opposite side, because we saw it from the booth side before, so now we're gonna look at it over my shoulder. So out here, we have house left, right? Over here, house right, and then this is the center section. Now, what is the house? The house is the area of the theater where we sit, okay? It's the seating space for our theater. This is the house, okay? It's where the audience is. Then you have what we call front of house, abbreviated as FOH. But the front of house it can kind of be two different things. In here, in this space, we often refer to it meaning this very front area here, right along the very front edge of the stage, as front of house, okay? That's why we'll call the lighting right up here like our front of house lighting. That'd be these lights up here in the catwalk, okay? So that's often what we mean by the front of house, but you also have like your front of house staff. Your front of house is also considered the lobby and anything really all the way out to the parking lot. So like your house crew and things like that, they're responsible for front of house. So they can be responsible for anything from this front edge of the stage all the way out into the parking lot that would be considered front of house position. So it kind of is twofold. It works both ways depending on what you're going with there. So proscenium is one of the next words that you learned about. And as you learned about, it's a type of stage, but it's also a part of the stage, Latin word for picture frame. And our proscenium is this part right here, where you see it go up, right there, up, across, and then back down. This opening is the proscenium, all right, which, like we said, is the Latin word for picture frame. Okay, so the next section I want to talk to you about is following on that page. It's in your stage terms, all right? We're going to focus on these stage directions, your stage right, stage left, and all that a little later as we do them in another way. But right now I want to talk to you about the legs, the grand, the teasers, the borders, the cyc, the electrics, all those kinds of things. So as you learn, the legs are the curtains that are long and vertical. They go up and down, right? And so we do have 3 sets of legs on our stage. Let me point those out to you here. Now, if you look over here, it's gonna look like we have far more than that, all right? And sorry for that light. I'm actually gonna try to come over here because you might be able to see a little better if I come from the other angle. Boom, there we go. Okay, so it looks like we have more than that, as you can see, but not all of those are legs. Some of those are what we call travelers. So we do have a leg here. This is one leg. All right, and then we have a leg here, and we have a leg there. All right, so we have 3 sets of legs. Then we have 3 sets of travelers. Travelers look like legs when they're pulled out, but the difference between a traveler and a leg is that the travelers can actually close. So that's back one here, this rear traveler, this very back one behind this green bag right there. The 2 sides can come all the way together and close to where you see nothing behind them. Same thing with our mid-stage traveler here. It can close. You can't see past that. And then your front traveler has its own name. It's a special traveler. It's its own name. And that's called the grand drape. The grand drape is that main front curtain. And in our case, it's a very simple one that just pulls with the rope on the sides to close it shut. However, grand drapes come in a lot of different ways, and different fancinesses and all that kind of stuff, depending on where it's at. Some will open just straight flying up. Some kind of have the ruffles and they fly up and out at the same time. There's a lot of ways that can happen, but ours open to the sides, okay? Now, what is a cyc? Oh, so let's jump back to teasers and borders. Teasers and borders are the other curtains we have up here. As you can see here, this curtain here, that is a teaser or border. We also have 3 of those as well. Right there is our upstage teaser. Come back a little more. That's our mid-stage teaser. And then it's our downstage teaser or grand teaser, okay? Now, what are the purpose of the legs and the travelers when they're pulled back? And what are the purpose of the teasers or borders? The legs help to keep you from seeing backstage from the audience when you don't want to see things. So if I'm sitting over here on the side, right, and I'm seeing it from this angle right now, if I don't have them, I can see everything back there. But when those legs get dropped and they're strategically positioned, you can't see what's going on backstage. And that happens on both sides of the stage. So the legs are very important to help keep that reality and the illusion of reality on our stage while we're doing our shows. The teasers have much the same kind of function, except for they are to keep you from seeing the things up there, right? And a lot of shows, we don't want to see all that technical stuff. We don't want to see everything that's happening. So what happens is we drop these teasers in just enough to cover whatever it is that we don't want seen. So sometimes we don't even want them to see the lights. So we'll drop them to where the lights are still effective, but you don't see the lights from the audience, or you don't see the bottom of a drop or things like that. Now, I will tell you, there are times in certain shows, like say in Footloose, we want you to see the lights. We're showing you, we're theatrical. We want you to see the modern of the time and all that stuff. And so what we do there is we leave those teasers up. And that way you can see them all. You see the lights, you see the moving heads moving around and all of those neat things that happen. So we keep it live for you. We keep it where you see it. We're not trying to hide it at all, but they're still nice to have. All right, so now the final one on this part in this section is called the cyc. Cyc is CYC. It's short for cyclorama. What is a cyclorama or a cyc? Well, in most cases, it's going to be white. You're going to see ours is white with spots because we need to get a new one. But this is our cyc here. It's this big white cottonish curtain. Not really curtain, but drop, I should say. And that drop usually is all the way down to the floor. And when it's down, you can throw a light on it, you can project on it, you can do whatever. But we often use it as a backdrop for many of our shows where we are shining light upon it to create different things like a sky or just a certain color or a wash of colors. But the cyclorama is used to project light and create a background for shows. Okay. Now, we don't always use a cyc because you can also use a drop or something else that works as well. But the cyc is something we have. We don't have drops. We have to rent them. So the cyc is often what we'll use if we can. If not, then we'll find something else. Okay. So the next thing that we are going to learn about is a batten. B-A-T-T-E-N. Now, we've looked up here into the stage house there a little bit already. So a batten, if you look up here, it's kind of hard to see because it's dark up there, but let's see if I can get past this light here. If you look up here, you see these pipes. Okay, these empty pipes. Here's one right here. Those are called battens. What the batten is for is we'll hang scenery from it. Our teasers are hung on battens. If we're flying in a drop of some sort for show, it's going to be on a batten. Maybe we want to fly in other decorations or scenery or a sign or something like that. For example, that sign there, this barbecue sign, and this is a big sign from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Those were hung on a batten and they were flown in and out. So the battens are used to fly scenery in and out above the stage, up and down, right? Then you have what we call an electric, okay? An electric is probably going to be in a different part of your page, but an electric is much like a batten because it is hung on a batten, but it's also got an electric box, as you can see up here above those lights, that provide electricity for our lights. And so those are powered battens. So it's got a batten with an electric box hanging below it, and then technically another batten below that to hang the lights on. So an electric provides the electricity for lights above our stage. We have 5 electrics over our stage. We have one big one out there in front of the house, and then we have 2 tormentor positions out on the walls where we have electricity for lighting, okay? Now, the apron. The apron is the next part of our stage we're gonna talk about, and this is it here. The apron is this area of the stage. I'm standing right now on what you call the plaster line. The plaster line connects from one edge of the proscenium to the other. So the plaster line is here, all the way across to there, right? That's the plaster line. Similar to the plaster line, we have the center line, which would be right up the center of the stage, all the way back, okay? Now, from the plaster line down to the front edge of the stage is the apron. Technically speaking, our apron only comes really to right here, all right, at this line, because that's where the stage actually stops. These things here, anybody know what they are? Bonus points if you know, not really, but what these are, we use them as stage areas, but they're actually pit covers that cover our pit, which is down below. The pit is where the orchestra plays. It's where the instrumentalist musicians play the music for our musicals. They hide out down there. We remove a few of these pit covers and they play down there, so the sound, their beautiful music comes up through the opening and provides the backing tracks for our show. We play our music live, okay? So that's the pit. Now, the wings. The wings are the areas off to the sides of the stage, over here and over here, that are off stage, right? The things that are hidden by the legs. So we have this area back over here. That's where we get the term waiting in the wings, right? Because the actors will be waiting in the wings, literally, to take their time on stage. So our wing here, as you can see, we've got a lot of stuff back in here, but this whole area is the wing. It's actually fairly empty right now compared to a showtime when it's really full of scenery and props and actors and everything else. But all this area is the wing, okay? And all this area this stuff is in. So our wing technically starts right about here, right at the back edge of these curtains, back. Our stage right wing is our larger wing, and so that's where we store most of our bigger scenery. Stage left wing is only about 5 feet deep before we hit the scene shop. So the wings, we have 2 wings, one on stage left, one on stage right. The deck is the stage deck. You can also hear it called a stage deck. Now, believe it or not, this scenery stuff that you see on the floor, this is called spiking. It was for a show. That was the beginning of a show. It was for a rep show last spring that all of a sudden got canceled when we didn't get to come back from school, or from break for school. So this was for a show that never got to happen. Unfortunately, that's what happened. So that's what that is. But it's all we tape, when you spike tape on the deck or the stage deck. This floor here is the stage deck, okay? It's made out of wood. It's painted black. As you can see, it just takes some wear and tear, but it is definitely a wood stage. All right. Let's see, I'm going to skip through some of these because some of these are not actual stage terms, they're more so acting terms. So we'll get back to those. Facility, let's go to facility. For facility, we have our tech booth. We talked about that briefly already. It's that place up there, holds the sound board and the light board. The bays are these areas up here. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look real close, you can see the white bars, boom. Right over there, and those bars up. So what we consider our bays is those areas in between the white bars, okay? So we have several different bays, like 10 of them. In some theaters, they're more divided with like actual wall partitions between them or things like that, and so they're very specific bays. Ours is more wide open, so to help get it a little more specific, we just use between the bars as our bays. Now, let's talk about our fly systems. I've mentioned that we have things that fly up and down over our stage. These curtains, as you can see right now, they wouldn't do much good with the legs and the cyc and all that stuff being up if we're in a show, because they'd be up out of the way and they wouldn't be hiding anything. So we've got to have a way to move that stuff around. With that, we have what we call our counterweight fly system or counterbalance fly system, or you'll hear me just say the fly system or the flies. It's referred to a lot of different ways, okay? You'll hear people call it different things. So with that, that's this whole system here, all right? See these series of ropes and pulleys and levers and wires and weight, and you can see the weights are at different heights. It comes up and goes across, and it's attached to all the battens, right? You can consider the counterbalance system a lot like a seesaw, right? We've all been to a playground. You have a seesaw, it's two sides. And if you put equal weight on both sides, it's easy to move, right? I could have two 300-pound men, one sitting on each side. But because they're evenly weighted, a little kid should be able to move it, right? That's the way a fly system is supposed to work. So if I have, say on a batten over here, 500 pounds of scenery, okay? Well, somebody lifting 500 pounds by themselves just over here muscling up, that's not gonna be easy. But if I stick 500 pounds of weight, like what you see here, well, it makes it a lot easier because then I can pull the rope a lot easier, okay? So the weight on this end is supposed to balance or counterbalance the weight on that end, making it easy to move. Now, we don't want those just moving whenever they should, so we have our pin rail or locking rail, and that's this part here, right? Is the pin rail or locking rail. And what it does is these things here secure our lock in place. They should always be up, the lever should always be up, and the deal should always be on it. I can't think of the name, so that's down, right? So like I said, to do that, it should be easy to move. And one-handed, I'm not gonna do it, but here, we lock it, and we put the ring around it. That ring, that's the word I was looking for, and that's locking it in place, okay? And as you can see, they are all locked. That's how they should be. We have lights, black lights that we put in up here above it. Why black lights? Because we don't want a bunch of bright light up back here during the show. That leaves it to where if we put our labels on white paper typically, somebody's got some blue on here, but if we leave them on white paper with the black light, they're easy to read. And so we use that there, okay? So that's the pin rail for the counterbalance fly system. Now, let's go to flats. All right, so we have some flat storage here. We're gonna learn about flats right now. So this is where we store our flats. Here we store our 8-foot flats, okay? And then if you look in here, where we come around the other end, where you actually access them, this is where we store our 10 and 12-foot flats. They're hiding right in here. What is a flat? Okay, a flat, the basic definition is a basic unit of scenery. What do we mean by that? Well, what we call a Broadway flat or a soft flat is made up of, it looks like this. It looks like basically a wall, okay? We can paint that to make it look like a lot of different things. The good thing about a soft flat is it's light, okay? You can see its basic construction here. It's just got 1x4s or 1x3s turned on their side, connected with corner blocks and keystones. All right, and so you can see this framework here. Oftentimes we'll also have a side piece or an angled piece that helps keep it straight and squared. And then it's covered in a muslin material, right? Muslin is like a canvas type material. It's slightly different. It's called muslin. It's wrapped in that, and you can paint on it, right? And so that's why they stay light, because it's cloth. All right, we use these if we're flying like a faux wall, a fake wall, that kind of thing, up and over the stage. We'll use a soft flat. Now, there's another kind of flat, it's called a Hollywood flat. Now, a Hollywood flat is made of a lot of the same materials. It's made of the 1x4s, or you can use 1x3s, but they're turned on end like this, right? So they're turned on end like this. So instead of laying flat this way, as you would see them, if I'm looking at the back of it, I'm seeing this. So for example, this is not a Hollywood flat because we're just framing a wall, but it's built kind of like one. So this is more so what a Hollywood flat would look like. Instead of this part being flat against this, it's on end where you see the narrow part looking straight at its back. And instead of covering it with a muslin, we cover it with a thin board called Luan. Okay, it's a very thin board, kind of like a very thin plywood. It's not quite the same, but it's close, as you can see. It gives it a little more rigidity. They get their name because they were often used in Hollywood to build your sets for TV shows and even movies and things like that. It's a lot cheaper than actually building some of these things. Why do we use a Hollywood flat instead of a Broadway flat? Well, for sets like interiors where we don't want walls moving, we need to hang stuff, we have windows and doors that are used. If you had a Hollywood flat, it's going to be more stable than if you're using a Broadway flat, because the Broadway flat's going to want to move on you every time you open or shut a door or a window or anything like that. A Broadway flat's going to stay more solid and rigid, okay? So that's the difference between those. Okay, a little further down your sheet, you might find the word spot bays or words spot bays. We don't technically have any here at LSHS. They do have them at Wesley, have them at North, and many theaters do have them. But if we were to have them, where they would be, so you can see our booth here, a spot bay would be just to the left or just to the right of the main bay tech area there, where the spotlights can shine down and hit the stage, right? We don't have them. They could have built this out and made one there and made one over here. If you've ever been to Starlight, the spot bays run between the two towers. They got that bridge, an outdoor spot bay area where it runs between the two towers, and that's where they run their spotlights from. So that's a little bit about spot bays. I can't really show them to you because we don't have any. Now, what we do have though is a scene shop, and we're going to take you there now. So the scene shop is here behind us, where we're going, and this is where we build a lot of our scenic stuff. Now, we don't just build in here, because if you look and notice, it's kind of small. All right, it's not that big. We got some room for tools, but if you try to build big scenery pieces in here, not going to work so well. But you can see this box here, that's where the piano for choir and all that stuff is stored. We've got some storage up here. We have some wood storage here, scrap. That's our hardware cabinet for things like screws, bolts, anything hardware related. Our paint cabinet is the yellow cabinet right over here. It's where we keep our paint. This is where we clean up our paint stuff and, store some of the other stuff that we use here. Our toolbox, where we keep most of our tools locked away. There's some drills in that one. All right. What we often have to do, because of the size of our shop, since we can't build a full set in here, in the ideal shop, it'd be big enough you could build your full set in there and then move it out. But we can't, obviously, and very few high schools can. So what we do here is often we'll overflow out there onto the stage and build out there and just kind of set it up in place there. Or we open this big garage door right here and we work outside. That's also another thing. This office here is kind of my backstage office, where you'll find me sometimes as I'm doing stuff. I'm being centered back here more often. Then I'll be working out of that office a little more often. All right, now over here we have the doorway upstairs, a good water fountain. This takes you to the PIC lobby hallway. The band room is right up there. If you go out these doors, you take a left, you'll see the football field. Okay, just to kind of get an idea of where we're at. Then what we're going to do here is I'm going to take you up and show you the costume rooms. The door is locked, so let me get my key out here real fast. I'm going to show you the changing rooms, makeup room stuff. We're going to show you the catwalk. You're going to get to go out there and see what that looks like. My key's not working. Okay, so I got the key to work finally. But this here is our stairwell up. And we go up here, and this is going to take us to our changing room, costume room, makeup room, all that kind of stuff. It's a little weird having to be way up here and out of the way. when we're in these areas during the show, you have to be quiet because it's a big echo chamber, and there's an opening to the catwalk out there, which the sound will flow right out into the house. So you have to be quiet. You can't be too loud when doing that. But this here is our main changing room. First off, right here is the men's dressing room. Okay, and we have this here. All right, each dressing room, men's and women's, both has a toilet, okay, and a sink. We call these our non-flushing toilets. Don't be mistaken, they do flush and work, but we tell people not to flush them in the show because people who design theaters are not the same as people who are architects who just design buildings. And they don't always get the input of people who design theaters. And regular architects don't really care about where the piping runs for sound reasons and things, but here in the theater we do. We don't want it running where the audience is going to hear it. Well, they run right down the side wall of the audience. So if you flush the toilet in the middle of the show, whoever's sitting over by that wall, they're going to hear it. And so you'd hate to be in a very romantic moment. The two main leads are about to go in for the kiss, and all of a sudden you hear the toilet just come flushing down the wall, right? So we tell people, don't flush these during the show. You can flush them before the show, you can flush them at intermission, you can flush them at the end of the show when people are making noise and they're not really going to hear it anyways, but not like in the middle of the show. Okay, we have our makeup mirrors here. Got 3 of them there, 4 of them over here. It's our makeup cabinet. This kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. So you can see the end of the football field there and our flagpole. That's the highway patrol. Okay, so the women's dressing room, much like the guys, just a little bit bigger. They got their closets, their own bathroom. Okay, don't worry, no one's up here. It's just me. So we store different things in here sometimes. Wigs, boots, you know, whatever we need to. Lots of different stuff is stored up here sometimes though. So this is the dressing room, okay? Now, from here, we can go on up to the catwalk. So we're going up another flight of stairs, another level, and we're gonna visit the catwalk, okay? So the catwalk, this is a utility room here. Interesting, right? Okay, so the top of these stairs, we have this room here. It's our catwalk. It's a shortened door, but you have to step up. So watch your head, right? I've hit my head a few times up here. A little dark, let me turn some lights on. It's still not gonna be very bright, but this is our catwalk. Now, as you can see in the lighting area, it's the lighting gallery, max 14 people. Okay, we'll go down there in just a second. We store some extra lights up here at times. If you come over here, this is the sound gallery, right? Sound gallery, 8 people max. Okay, why is it called the sound gallery? Well, once upon a time, all of our speakers were right back here, right? Now they're out in the house area. But it was called the sound gallery from that, so we just keep that name. Now, we often call it the graveyard because we store lights that are not working or need repaired or just getting old down there. It's kind of like the graveyard area, right? So, we're up here. Being up here is kind of like being in an attic. You don't step off the main walk area, because if you tried to step out there, you'd fall through to the floor, because it's just sheetrock. That's all it is. It's not made for weight. Now, no reason to ever be scared up here. There's railings on both sides and lighting. You would have to purposely fall off. It's not like you would accidentally fall off this thing. There's just not room. So as you can see, there's lights here. And I'll give you an interesting view of the stage here in just a moment. You do have to watch your head. Lots of low things as you walk by here, as you can see. Okay. Somebody left our area a little messy. It needs to be cleaned. But here it is. This is looking down over the stage. So that is the podium. That was down center. You can see the stage area there with the spiking. All right, and you can see all of our stage there. So this is an interesting view. We do have people who sit up here during our shows who are running what we use for spotlights, because we use lights that are up here and put a different lens on them since we don't have spot bays, and we position them up here and we do our best. But this is the catwalk. There's not really a reason you guys will probably be up here, but it is neat to know about, neat to see. So if we were in person doing this tour, you would have got to come up and kind of see it. But since we're not, It is what it is. We'll just make our best of it, right? All right, so that is the catwalk. So, Theater 1, that's it. That's all you need to know for right now. We're gonna cover some stage directions and body positions and other things like that here a little later, but not today. That's a different class period for you. If you are in stagecraft, keep watching because you have some tools we need to go over. All right, so we're gonna get to those in just a moment. Okay, stagecraft, so we are back in the shop. And for this portion, we're gonna go over just some of the tools that you'll probably be working with when you get back eventually, and you might be able to work with hands-on. Okay, but I wanna make sure you know what they are. So we're gonna start with one showing you this toolbox here. This toolbox contains most of our tools, and it is labeled. So batteries, chargers, screwdrivers, small levels, and screw bits. All right, so everything has a home, and you're expected to get everything back into its home when we're done, because at the end of each day, I lock them up so people don't take off with our tools, right? So, in here, as you can see, we have lots of drill batteries, things like that. And these are small levels. This one doesn't have a magnet on it, but these do, right? And so this is a level. What is the level used for? Well, it's used to make sure things are level. Anytime you get that hole, that bubble, let me come to this side here, the bubble in between the lines, you should be level, right? If it's not, it's because you're not really sitting level, okay? So that's why it's called a level. Now, we have the small levels. We also have a 4-foot level hiding somewhere in this theater that I need to find now that I'm coming back. Okay, so the next item on our list is the shop vac. Ours is a rigid shop vac sitting right here right now. That's not necessarily where it lives when we're actually using it because it's on the floor, getting used a lot, but for now it's up out of the way. So we have our shop vac there. We have basic screwdrivers, which you should probably be familiar with, but in case you're not, I will cover them. As we said, our screwdrivers are stored right up here in the top. And we have a Phillips, right? Phillips is this one, looks like this, has that starred head on it. If you look at it straight on, kind of a star type shape. Okay, not a star because there are star bits, but it's more of a cross, I guess you could say. But this is a Phillips screwdriver. And then we also have a standard screwdriver. Also, people will call it a flathead, all right, or a flat or a straight screwdriver. But its official name is a standard screwdriver. So that's where you're going to find those two things. Then we have our circular saws. Our circular saws are stored down here in the drawer. This says circular saws. Now, in circular saw, we have one that's cordless, and the others are corded. So as I was saying, we have one that's cordless, and the others have cords on them. And with this one, what we do is it has a battery here. That's an 18-volt battery, right? And it's got a blade that spins. You never put your hands in front of it. We can talk all about that later as we go over tool safety. But this is for cutting straight cuts. You're not going to be able to cut curved cuts with this. This is for your sheet wood. So your plywood, your Luan, you know, those kinds of things. OSB, you know, that kind of wood is what you're going to use here. You're not going to use it to cut any kind of curves, though. So you're not going to have any luck with that. Okay? And then the next one, let me see here. It's our miter saw. Okay. Our miter saw is this one here. It again is a straight cut, but it's for chopping through like a 2x4 or a 1x4 or a 2x6 or 4x4. So this kind of wood like this to cut it down into pieces, right? It's our miter saw. You're going to learn more about each of these saws here in a little while when we get over tools and tool safety more. I'm just giving you a quick brief introduction as to ours. Okay, so this is a miter saw. It's on a stand, which makes it portable, which is nice. Then we have our jigsaw. Our jigsaw is right here. We have a corded jigsaw. The blade moves up and down on this one, right? What is it that's neat about a jigsaw? With jigsaw, you can make curved cuts and do things like that. That's how you get your neat shapes. You can do that with the jigsaw because the way the blade moves up and down, it allows you to make those curves. All right, we have cordless drills. There's a couple here. There's some in that box. And then we have some here, all right? We have some cordless drills in here. All right, we also have a corded drill floating around somewhere, but we use mostly cordless drills. Crescent wrench, all right, is in the crescent wrench drawer. You can see they're nicely laid out here. We expect them returned back when you're done, but these are your crescent wrenches, your adjustable crescent wrenches. Okay. We have sockets and socket sets. This is our socket wrench and sockets drawers. So as you can see, we have different sets here of sockets. This is a socket wrench. These are sockets. We're missing one, missing a couple. But these are different sockets and socket sizes here. Okay. The stapler, well, that's going to be in that cabinet, and it's locked, so I'm not going to worry about getting it out right now. But that is what we use to staple, say, a poster up, or to staple muslin to a soft flat, that kind of thing. And we just shoot little, usually 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch staples. Okay. A hammer, you all should know what a hammer is. We do have a drawer here for hammers. It's where we keep them. All right. There's a slight difference in this hammer here and the others. This one's longer. The teeth or the back claws on it are a little bigger, as you can tell. The head's a little bigger. This is more of a demo hammer, made for tearing things apart more so. Chalk lines are going to be down here. That's what these are for. And these chalk lines help us to snap a line straight on a piece of sheet wood, so we have a guide to follow with our circular saw when we're cutting. In this drawer, you'll also find squares. Okay. Yes, I know they look like triangles, but they're squares. Because they help to make sure your things are square when you are putting things together, drawing lines, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's all your basic tools. We're going to learn more about them later. We're going to go over them and make sure you understand them and know how to use them safely. But for now, that's all we got to cover for this tour. So you guys have been on here a while, so go ahead, hop off, make sure you're familiar with all those terms and things, and we're going to go over more in a little bit later. But for now, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.